Hello, I'm Brad Harris, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Historic Smithtown. Today, I'm standing in front of the Frank Brush Barn, a barn that sits on the property of the Smithtown Historical Society, and we would like to tell you a little about this barn and its history. The Smithtown Historical Society is very fortunate to have a building on its property that we can use for large group gatherings, and that's the Frank Brush Barn. That's been sitting on its location since 1988 when it was moved. The barn was initially on Landing Avenue, would be the east side of Landing Avenue, where the Country Estates condominium is now located. In 1988, there were two houses sitting side by side where the condominiums are now located. As you faced those houses, the one on the left belonged to Frank Brush. The one on the right belonged to Clinton Darling. Clinton Darling was a rather unique individual. He was the town undertaker, and he operated his undertaker parlor from the front room of his house. And I have heard stories of kids going to school who used to pass by the house and would see a body laid out in the parlor as Clinton Darling was working on them. He was obviously performing a role that was very important in the town. And one of the additional things about his undertaker parlor was that if you went there and you needed to have the body moved, for instance, from the parlor to the cemetery down the street, he had a team of horses and a wagon that he used for that purpose. And he kept that team of horses and a wagon in a big barn that was behind the house. And it was a nice old barn, probably built sometime around 1880, 1890. Clinton Darling operated his undertaking business until his death in 1947. After that, the property was sold. A gift shop was opened in the building, in the house. That operated until they bought the property for the condominiums. They demolished the house ultimately, but the barn was given to the Historical Society. The Historical Society employed Davis movers to actually relocate the barn to its present location on Middle Country Road on the grounds of the Historical Society. One of the things they did in reconstructing the building was they removed all those interior stalls, so now you have a big open barn, but they were faced with the problem of how to support the roof since you've taken out all the interior supports. And they came up with these long beams that run across from the walls to the opposite roof. So they actually form an X in the attic, but you don't see that below. All you see are the base of the beams. But what it did was effectively eliminate an attic, but it created a huge open space within the barn. So you can have a gathering of a good many people in there. The barn originally sat behind Clinton Darling's house on Landing Avenue. The immediate neighbor next door was Frank Brush, and Frank Brush was a town clerk for many, many years. I believe it was 33 years. So when they relocated the Darling barn and reconstructed it, the Historical Society decided to call it the Frank Brush Barn. And in that way, we have saved kind of two aspects of Smithtown's history. We've saved Clinton Darling's undertaker's barn, and at the same time, we've saved Frank Brush's name for posterity. There are a couple of reasons why the Historical Society decided to move that barn. One of the reasons was that associated with the Judge's homestead on Middle Country Road, there had always been outbuildings and barns on the property. By 1988, a lot of those barns had disappeared. And where the barn now sits, the Brush Barn now sits, it's on the site of another old barn that used to be there, a very big barn, probably as big as the Brush Barn. And so it kind of was replacing something that had always been there.
We have a number of buildings that are on their original foundations. Of course, the brush barn was moved there, the tavern was moved there, and the old library was moved there. Most of the buildings there are on the original site, but the thing that really draws the most people in, the thing that we're most recognized for, is the brush barn, even though it was moved there from another location. It really is at the heart of what we do, and so that's why it really has this importance. It allows us to bring the most people in, allows us to bring the most people to the site. It's become recognizable. I don't necessarily want to say iconic, but it's become a landmark for Smithtown. So everyone knows where the Brush Barn is. Without that, it might even be difficult for people to know where the Historical Society is, as frustrating as that may be for us. But we use it to our advantage. So the thing that's really holding us together as an organization and putting us out in the community is the Brush Barn. The Historical Society needs to have a good working relationship with the community and specific groups in the community. And we've actually been very blessed to have a really great working relationship with the Rotary Club of Smithtown in particular. Throughout our ownership of the barn and our existence as an organization, we've needed things. When we've approached the Rotary Club of Smithtown in particular, they've been very good to us. They helped facilitate with funding the move of the Brush Barn from Lanning Avenue over to our property. Then a few years later, when it was decided that we needed a bathroom facility and eventually a kitchen facility, the Rotary Club of Smithtown again stepped up and they built the extension. In addition to providing funding, they actually came down and physically built the extension that houses the bathrooms onto the side of the barn. And then recently, there really became a need to have the windows replaced in the barn. The old windows just were not good in terms of any energy conservation. Aesthetically, they were not the greatest thing to look at. So again, the Rotary Club of Smithtown stepped up, donated the funding, and facilitated getting the windows installed. So the Rotary Club has been very good to us, but a number of organizations and members in the community have been, and it's crucial to the Historical Society's existence that we can work with the community. We're here to serve the community, but we like to think of it as also a two-way street.
Another aspect about that barn that's interesting, today it has these huge doors in the front and the side that swing open. Those aren't the original barn doors. The original barn doors were sliding doors that kind of crossed in front of them. When we reconstructed that barn, it just happened that the Stony Brook Carriage Museum at that point was making a lot of changes in the buildings they owned, and they had taken down their old carriage house. And the carriage house had these beautiful doors. So we asked them if we could have those doors, and they very obligingly allowed us to take them. So those doors, and there are three sets of them. There's the main door in the back, there's a side door, and there's an interior door. Those are all designed to be those big sweeping doors that would open out. So even if you congregated with a lot of people in the barn, and there was a problem or a fire or an emergency, all you had to do was pop those doors open and it was ready access to the outside. So we have a part of the history of the Carriage Museum in our barn, which makes it interesting. The barn fits very nicely in its surroundings. It looks as if it has always been there, which is a very nice feature about it as well. I don't know how much of a key it is to the past. It certainly shows you what barn construction was like in the 1890s, anyway, when that barn was built. It's very reminiscent of any barn that might have been located in Smithtown. We had lots of barns, but so many of them have disappeared. It seems that when you have an old piece of farm property, one of the first buildings to go is the barn. And I think we're very fortunate to be able to save it.
I feel like one of the things that Smithtown lacks at times, is this bustling suburbia. It's that sense of a tighter-knit community. It's something that brings people together on a level of, on a cultural level. And I think having a facility that members of the Historical Society can use, the general public can use, in the Brush Barn is just a great thing for the community. It's a great aspect to bring people together for, like I was saying, community events, for heritage-related clubs to come and use. It really fosters that sense of community to have a place where you can go and have a good time, a valuable learning experience. So in that regard, the barn is just crucial to what we're doing here, and I'd like to thank to the community itself.
I hope you enjoyed this segment on historic Smithtown and a look at the Frank Brush Barn. Join me next time for another look at Smithtown's past. I'm Brad Harris for Historic Smithtown. Thanks for watching.